Yeah, you know what it is. Black and yellow, black and yellow, black and yellow, black and yellow. Yeah, you know what it is. Yeah.
Najee Harris to the end zone. Touchdown. Fires. Intercepted. Picked off at a pick six. Minka Fitzpatrick is an absolute ball hawk. Picked off Polamalu. Polamalu going right. The field is open. Aaron Smith shields. Flacco. Polamalu takes it home. Super Bowl 40. Roethlisberger. Last time. Throws to the back of the end zone. And it is caught for a touchdown by Holmes.
Push to start.
And welcome back to the first ever episode in a few months of BLITZHERZ podcast. This is your host, Shay, of course, with my very special guest, Mr. Ray Fittipaldo from Pittsburgh Post Gazette. Ray, how are you doing today? Thank you for joining.
I'm doing good, Shay. Thanks for having me on.
All right, so we're just going to kick off this episode, the segment of what is the SHAEMAC show, but I did promise Steeler Nation that I was going to bring BLITZHERZ back as a part of the SHAEMAC show brand, which is why the lovely SHAEMAC show logo is on there. But we usually kick off this episode by allowing my special guests to introduce themselves more so the audience get to know them, as in their background in sports, how this all got started for them, basically their epic journey into their great careers. So,
yeah. So, Shay, I started at the Post Gazette in 1997, covered high schools for a few years. I also covered Duquesne basketball, Penn State football, and Pitt basketball before I got on the Steelers beat full time. So I've been doing this a long time. This is probably year 27 or so for me doing sports writing, and about year 11 or 12 doing the Steelers. So hope everybody enjoys my work, and let's talk about the Steelers.
Yeah, I'm excited for you to be on the show. I said, you know what? If I'm going to bring it back, I'm going to have to bring it back with a special guest that everyone's going to care to hear from, which is why I was extremely selective with who I'm bringing back. It's pretty dope that you have been here basically since it all. You've been here since before I was even thought of, let alone born. I'm the youngest of 5 kids, so that should tell you how many were born during your career. But the fact that you were here during the 90s, that means you kind of experienced Cordell Stewart. You kind of covered, Tommy Maddox. And, of course, you covered Ben Roethlisberger, which was an epic career. But Steelers have been up and down for the past umpteen years. It really started the end of 2020, heading into 2021. There was not this juggernaut team, but they was a team that always kept themselves in the mix. But obviously, Big Ben, retiring, it hit the Steeler Nation harder than they thought it would. So with all of this being said, let's just give them the recap of the 2023-2024 NFL season, which was a complete chaotic mess offensively. Defense, we know what it was already. We knew we could put our money on this defense to win us some games, but the offense was just a hot mess. From Matt Canada being fired practically mid-season, something I believe that should have been done before, Kenny Pickett was drafted. I just think that everything should have just been cleaned out. It was a new quarterback. It was a new era. I think that was a hiring that went a little too late. And then from there, Trubisky stunk up the joint, which practically back-to-back years, you can say, not only did it nearly cost the Steelers a playoff spot for the second year in a row, but it definitely cost them the AFC North title, last year, where they were 7-2, a 7-3 football team. Then lost to the Jaguars. I think Kenny got hurt that game. Then didn't play against the Cardinals, I'm not mistaken. Trubisky stunk it up that game. Then the Patriots and the Colts. And I think they pulled the card a little too late. But they found their way. Rudolph saved Christmas, and the rest is history. So what are your overall thoughts on that 2023-2024 season as we heading into this year?
Chaotic is a good word. I like that. You mentioned the Matt Canada thing was a long time coming, Shay. I agree with you. They probably should have pulled the trigger on that move earlier. But, once they did, they actually had a formidable running game. And I think that running game kind of fueled what they did down the stretch with Mason Rudolph. Mason Rudolph, of course, had a few big plays in there to George Pickens. Also in the Seattle game, he made some throws there. So he made the necessary plays to lead them to the playoffs. I actually thought Mason, other than the interception in the end zone, I thought Mason played pretty well in that playoff game. They were just so decimated by injuries to that defense. They didn't really have a shot against Josh Allen and the Bills. So, I think they're hoping for a much calmer season. But I think this season there are expectations for the playoffs again with all the changes that they made.
Yeah, I got to agree there. I just want to discuss it a little more because I just think that we got a glimmer, I think that's the proper word to use for what we were going to get out of Mason Rudolph if we were to move on from Ben and go to his era. I think that he had, some potential. And people like me, I got to admit, I owe Mason Rudolph a huge apology because I did not think he had it in him. But see, they allowed Mason Rudolph to do what I highly suggested for them to allow Kenny to do. Now, I just think that, okay, maybe I'm a little crazy here when I say that they should have brought Ben back another year on a veterans deal, have Kenny sit behind him a year so he could learn from him and then move on from Ben to Kenny. I think that would have worked out well. They should have fired Canada, like I said, mid-2021 season. I wanted him gone then because when the quarterback is playing quarterback, offensive coordinator, basically game manager, all in one, and we're seeing plays where during that season that we're like, okay, where the hell was this the whole season? Where the hell was this the entire game? And it's funny that from when life after Canada of last year compared to 2021 season, when we saw Ben drive the ball down, we started to see a little bit of himself. Obviously, we're not going to see the mobility. I did not expect that because that's 26-year-old Big Ben to 39-year-old Big Ben. That is over a decade of a difference right there. If you really thought you was going to see that version of Big Ben, then this reality that you wanted people like me who defended him during that time and told you who the issue was because the run game wasn't getting going. The offensive line wasn't getting going. The play calling was so predictable. It was ridiculous. I never played a game of football a day in my life. The most I played was backyard football, which is ironically what they label Ben's style of play. Backyard, why they called them backyard Ben. And I just said, you know what? If I could sit right there on that screen and be like, we know what you're going to do. It's the same freaking 4 to 5 plays every game. Just imagine people who've been playing all their lives. Up here, when you are a pro, I don't care whether you're drafted or undrafted, first round or 7th, you are a pro for a reason. It's because you know the game of football, or others believe you know the game of football better than hundreds and thousands of talent that that registered or signed up and made their protocols, made their call for the drafts. You were very few selected. Like, you got that 1 in a million opportunity. Just imagine what people of that caliber is able to look at that office and do. Just imagine people who coached at all levels were able to do. We're sitting on our couches right now. Now, you covered the game longer than I did, so of course you're going to know more. And I would never question your football knowledge or your takes. That's why I brought you on this show. But you and I both have one thing in common. We could both sit on our couch or lay on our beds and be like, this is about to be a jet sweep. This is about to be a short throw. It was a miracle when we saw that ball go deep shot, but then we find out it wasn't Canada that called the play. It was either Roethlisberger or Pickett calling his own plays, or it was Sullivan behind him and Faulkner called the run plays because nothing worked. And I'm like, you know what? I wanted him gone mid-2021 season. They shopped him out of here mid-2023 season, which was 2 years too late because now you messed up Kenny's development, who was already a development project to begin with. You took 2 years off in Najee's prime, practically wasted it. Now he's in a contract situation with the organization, which we're going to discuss a little more on the show. And now we're just getting back, or have a feeling we're getting back to something that we should have committed to 2021 season when we drafted Najee Harris, because that's why we drafted him.
Yeah, absolutely. Mason Rudolph, you brought Mason up, and I thought he did a terrific job too. Third round pick, Kevin Colbert really believed in him. And it just never worked out until that 5-game stretch at the end of last season. And, I think the reason he's not here anymore is because Mike Tomlin always said late in Ben Roethlisberger's career, he wanted that dual threat at quarterback. He wanted that guy who had mobility. And that's, look at this training camp. Every single quarterback from 1 to 4, Russell Wilson, Justin Fields, Kyle Allen, and John Reese Plumlee, they could all run. Now, varying degrees of running. Justin Fields is obviously the best runner, but they can all move and get out of the pocket and make plays. So I think Mike Tomlin finally has what he wants. You mentioned Najee Harris. Arthur Smith is the new OC. They want to pound the football. They want to run. And they want to do play action off of that. So that's the formula this year. It looks good in training camp. Everyone is clapping that the offense is doing something. That's all well and good. We got to see it in the preseason games coming up starting Friday night. And most importantly, we got to see it when the regular season starts about a month from now. So reasons to be optimistic, Shay, but I got to see it against different teams before I get too excited about
it. Correct me. Sorry for that. We all got suckered last year. I gotta agree with you on that one because we all got suckered. Like we all thought, Matt Canada, you finally opening up the playbook. We're finally seeing this creativity because we started seeing deep shots. We started seeing tight ends get involved. We started seeing the running game get going. We started seeing Kenny look way better than he did his rookie year, which was highly expected because you were no longer rookie. And then came week 1 and beyond, we just started seeing the same crap for why we wanted you out of here in the first place. Half of us who already knew about you didn't want you hired here. And everybody was too busy blaming Ben, but guess what? I couldn't blame Ben Roethlisberger for that. You cannot blame someone, one, who's no longer in the building for you to blame. Let's start there. And then let's go with number 2 is the fact of this right here. It's just a hot mess for the Steelers, and it was just chaotic. Like that's me being nice about it. That was just complete and embarrassing chaos is what I will straight up say that it was. So we speak on this. Canada's out. Off season started March. They pulled the trigger. They did something that, some of us like me is happy about because this guy right here, he defines Steelers football. Like if you need to do your homework on the 2019 and 2020 Tennessee Titans, who were a top 10 offense. They weren't even thought to be an offensive team. No one even had the Titans in the conversation. And they went from a top 5 seed to the number 1 seed his last year. Then he went to Atlanta. So what is your overall thoughts on the Arthur Smith hire in Pittsburgh?
Yeah, I love that you did your homework. You're right about the Titans when he was the OC there. It's a familiar formula. The Steelers used it for many years when Jerome Bettis was here, but Arthur Smith fed Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry had huge seasons there, and they had a quarterback by the name of Ryan Tannehill. Now, people will say, Ryan Tannehill was just an average quarterback. He might have been an average quarterback when he was in Miami, but I thought once he got to Tennessee, anytime you lead a team to the AFC Championship game, and I think the Titans had a 10 10 or 14-point lead over the Chiefs in that AFC Championship game. Anytime you do that, you're an above-average quarterback. And, what the Steelers have now in Russell Wilson and Justin Fields, I think those two guys, listen, Wilson at this stage of his career, I think can still be that. And I think Justin Fields, who's, trying to rebuild his career here, if he ever gets a chance to be the quarterback, he could do similar things to what Ryan Tannehill did for the Titans. So, people talk about the Steelers receiving core. It's not deep. Name me two receivers from those Titans teams in 2019 and 2020.
A.J. Brown, that's all I can name.
Yeah. They had a high draft pick and Corey Davis. Corey Davis didn't work out. But the point is, and I think you see where I'm going, he can make it work with a bunch of different receivers if he has that running game and that quarterback to orchestrate the play action and all the stuff he does off the running game. So I'm with you. I like the hire. I think it's going to be a good thing for the Steelers offense here in 2024.
Yeah, I got to agree. And I know if I had $1 for every time I said that up here, I'll probably be filthy rich by now. But it's just Arthur Smith brings that old school mentality, which is what the Steelers is known for. Run the ball, stop the run, type of play, type of football. And obviously you got the defense that's practically back there. The only thing I got questions about is the cornerback room out of Joey Porter Jr. I like the signing of Deshaun Elliott. Obviously, you know how I feel about Minka. That's the Minka penitentiary, baby. We and T.J. Watt and Highsmith and Hayward, who I still feel can get it done. I like the signings of the rookies. I love Broderick Jones, and Joey Porter Jr. is, obviously he's already one of my favorite players, and I'm actually about to buy his jersey. Speaking of which, before the start of football season, because that brother needs some more love. But we speak on this all the time, and people don't get the defense is there. We just need the Russell Wilson and Justin Fields, whoever is the starting quarterback. The one thing that I'm sitting here saying is you can easily run the offense with either one of them people. And the only thing you really need them to do when you think about it is be a game manager. But obviously they could be more than that. They've shown you that. Justin Fields shown you in Chicago what happens when you give him the fair shot. He showed you what he could do with DJ Moore. Just imagine him and George Pickens. Just imagine him and Pat Freiermuth. Just imagine Darnell Washington, who I feel did not get used the way he was supposed to be used. And then people forget that the Steelers also have Calvin Austin, who to me, I'm not saying he's as good as Tyreek Hill, but you can play him the same way the Chiefs and the Dolphins played Tyreek Hill. You know what I mean? Because he got that speed. He can catch. We've seen a little bit in week 3 last year versus the Raiders. So we know that we could, if we are to run a quick slant, we know he's our guy. Then you got Van Jefferson, who's a pretty good receiver. And now rumor has it, I'm not sure about this, but rumor has is that they're in the juggernaut now for, Brandon Ayuk from the 49ers. I'm not sure, I'm not really confident about that trade. We could definitely discuss a little bit of that, but this one I am DK Metcalf because of his bond with Russell Wilson. He's looking for more money. He obviously wants to be a Super Bowl contender team. He wants to be with a coach who's going to put him in a perfect position to win. And there's no head coach in this league that defines that better than Tomlin. You're at least getting to a 500 season. You at least is getting in the conversation for playoffs, which is something really hard to do when you're on a Seattle Seahawks football team that is clearly in the rebuild stage, even though, if I'm not mistaken, they made the playoffs last year or the year before that, and things of that nature. So it's like it's a lot to be positive about. And then I ain't even mentioned Najee Harris, who could run and catch. I did not even mention Jaylen Warren, who can receive and catch. And these guys are real hard-nosed football players. Like, they giving me that faster version of Jerome and Willie in 2005. And 2005 season. Willie wasn't there 04. But they're giving me all of these things. And when you get that vibe, you have no choice but to be excited, because we saw what Arthur Smith can do with Derrick Henry. Just imagine basically another modern day version of him with Jaylen Warren. Then you forgot Cordell Patterson just got signed. And then, a lot of quick slants that worked well for the Falcons last year. Scotty Miller just came to the Steelers. You can use him as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's they have a lot of under the radar weapons, I think. And I think all the quarterback has to do, and I think Russell Wilson's calf eventually will heal up, and I think he'll end up being a starter. But even if it's Justin Fields, Shay, all this quarterback has to do this year is have a decent touchdown to interception ratio. Look at Russell Wilson last year. I know he didn't play at the end of the season because of that contractual situation in Denver, but he had 26 touchdowns and 8 interceptions. That is the reason why he has, quote unquote, the pole position on Justin Fields. Justin Fields has a much worse touchdown to interception ratio. He didn't take care of the ball in Chicago as well as Russell Wilson has over the course of his career. So I just think Russell's experience, his ability to take care of the ball is the reason he's the starter now. We'll see how he plays, but I think it's terrific that the Steelers have someone like Justin Fields in the background just waiting for his opportunity. He's not happy with those 3 years in Chicago. A number 11 overall pick, not getting a second contract, not even getting to year 4. You have to know that's embarrassing for him. So he's champing at the bit to get his next opportunity. And I got to tell you, from the first week of camp where I thought he was so-so to the second week of camp, I thought he was good. Now let's see what he can do in week 3 and, Friday night against the Texans. I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do out there.
Yeah. I'm definitely looking forward to it as well. We know what Russell Wilson could do with a high power offense or at least a decent offensive coordinator, but we're still questioning Justin Fields because you could argue we didn't see him in a fair position. We gotta be fair here. He did not get the fair shot in Chicago. Chicago was a complete mess. They're just starting to get back to it, but a lot of Bears fans ain't sold on the Caleb Williams pick. They wish they would have kept Fields and build from there because they had something going the end of 2023 season when they started putting up points that they thought they would never see their offense put up. And I think that's what led to a lot of coaches, basically the Bears cleaning house this offseason. Yeah. So when you have all of that and you have, I think what it is, a lot of people are really excited because this is something they felt they should have done, middle to the end of Roethlisberger era, is bringing someone, that can win you now, but also will be ready for the future. So not only did I think that Justin Fields and, Russell Wilson Justin Fields trade, Russell Wilson signing is allowing them to make up for many would say the mistake that they made the last days of Roethlisberger, which is not bringing somebody in to build your future around while still having a guy that can get it done now. And I think that's why they traded for Justin Fields, because they're afraid that they don't want to be in that they don't want to be in that predicament again. We've seen the chaotic of, these past 2 years previously of what happens when you do. And then not only that, but the AFC North Division is about to be a juggernaut this year. And I actually want to get into that a little bit as I speak on the expectations of 2024. But before we move on to that, and before we move on to training camp and things of that nature, what were your first thoughts when you found out, okay, the Steelers are going to sign Russell Wilson, and then less than a month later, they made the move. They sucker Chicago again. People forget it's the same Steelers who basically suckered Chicago into trading them the 32nd overall pick when they acquired Chase Claypool, who didn't last there long, and then they got Joey Porter Jr. Now they just got Russell Wilson for a second. Justin Fields for a second, which is practically can be your quarterback of the future. So what are your overall thoughts when you found out back-to-back, practically back-to-back weeks that this happened? Yeah. What was your overall reaction? Where were you when this happened?
Yeah, I think it was days. I remember I was at the Combine, and I remember I was at Sean Payton's podium, and he was kind of dancing around the whole contract issue. And I think a day or two later, they parted ways with Wilson. And then I think might have been within a week or two that it all came together with the Steelers. So, I thought Omar and the Steelers played their hand perfectly, not only with the Wilson deal, because the Broncos are paying him $39 million in 2024. The Steelers are paying him just the vet minimum, just a little bit over $1 million. So they got a bargain there. And then,
huge bargain.
And they really bought low with with Justin Fields, a 6th-round pick for a former number 11 overall pick. You could say what you want about how it went in Chicago, but that guy's still got talent. You know, it might be up to the Steelers to sort of rehab him and, you know, get him back to the player they want him to be and the one he wants to be. But 6th-round pick, I mean, you're kidding me. I mean, that's to get your number 1 for $1 million and then get your backup for a 6th-round pick. That's winning the offseason every time for me. So a lot still has to unfold in 2024. It's a brutal schedule for the Steelers. You know, the owner, Art Rooney, pretty much put it on Tom and said, hey, you got to start winning playoff games. So we'll see if Wilson and Fields can deliver there. But I certainly like the approach that Omar Khan took this offseason when he acquired those two.
Yeah, I'm actually glad too. And I think like the moves that Omar Khan is making is the moves we've been begging Colbert to make for years. Like when we had this high power offense, we was like, yo, are you going to make some moves? Are you going to trade? Are we going to see some like get in the mix here? Build this championship team. Build us a freaking playoff winning team. When are we going to see that? But then Omar Khan just came out the blue and said, you know what? This is my team. We're going to do this way, like boom, 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 boom. And it's crazy that he is taking shorter time than anyone would have projected to build this team, because no one would think that after losing a significant name like Ben Roethlisberger, the Steelers, out of all teams, will be in the predicament they are right now. Because now we're in the trade for Brandon Ayuk. We're in the juggernaut for Brandon Ayuk. Now we're in the trade for DK Metcalf. If I had to flip a coin and pick, or I had to, pick which one I think should come to the Steel City, one for cap benefit and for team, I'm going to go with DK Metcalf on that one, because I just think that he will be less money. It will be less that we have to give up. And I don't think we will have to trade any defensive players to another team, for that to happen, which I'm afraid that can happen with Brandon Ayuk. So before, we move on to the extra pieces that we added, what are your thoughts on that? Because I know a lot of Steelers fans who see my tweets, obviously they've seen yours too. Brandon Ayuk is the talk of the Steel City, even though he's not even here. What is your thoughts on the Steelers, possibly acquiring DK Metcalf or Brandon Ayuk? When you first heard of this, what was your overall reaction, and where are you at with this now?
I will say right now that the trade speculation is it's gone wild. So there's a lot of people out there who don't necessarily have the credentials, who are reporting things. And, to my knowledge, it's not true at this point. But I will say this about Omar Khan. I wouldn't put it past them to make a trade. I think if Brandon Ayuk or some other receiver does become available because of their contract situation, if he can get them for the right price in terms of compensation, what he has to give up, and he can get Ayuk or whoever for the right price under the cap, as long as it's not a Justin Jefferson $33 million deal. If it's, $5 to $7 million lower, maybe it's something that, that you can manage, then I think Omar will, at the very least, do his due diligence on it. So, the stuff, we're taping on Monday night. Monday was crazy with all the speculation. It's not true right now, but I think Omar will pursue that if the 49ers or another team come to him and, want to discuss it. Yeah.
And speaking of, Omar Khan, clearly he's showing you he's a genius. He could make something out of nothing. He's showing you that. And that is a great sign if you're a Steelers fan, because even though I felt Kevin Colbert played a little lazy his last days as the Steelers GM, but it's no question that he would be a hard piece to replace. But Omar Khan shown us that we're going to be just fine with him, Tomlin, and the guys. They're going to figure it out. They're going to put this team together, and we'll be A-okay. We're not going to go back to the Steelers of the 80s and the early 90s where it was some blood bad years. I wasn't born during that time, so I didn't witness it, but I did hear stories. I do, keep up on team history and things like that from where we are and how did we get back here, things of that nature. But I don't think we're going to get back to that. Thank God, because of people like Omar Khan, who's a part of this organization, who understands where we once was and understand that we need to move forward and go back instead of going backwards. So he's able to do something that I don't think, Colbert was able to do, which is pretty much keep up with the Joneses, but do it wisely. Don't do it off of hype. Do it off of team's needs. Do it off of things that that's going to benefit the team in the long term. Guys that you're going to be able to afford without affecting others' contracts. Things of that nature. So he's doing, something we want him to do, but he's doing it in a more careful manner. He's not to sit here, playing checkers while you got people like the 49ers or organizations like the 49ers, to be more exact, playing chess. And that's what we love about him. He plays chess, not checkers. And that's why I feel already we have one of the best GMs in football.
And he's endearing himself to Steelers fans because how is he building this team? Through the trenches, right? Rebuilding the offensive line. 3 out of the first 5 draft picks this year were offensive linemen. That's the way Omar and his assistant GM, Andy Weidel, want to build this football team. I think starting next year, next offseason, I think you're going to see the defensive line starting to get younger, more draft picks poured into that unit, maybe a free agent signing to help that unit because it's aging out a little bit with Cam and Larry Ogunjobi, getting near the end of their career. So he's doing it the right way, and then he's also shrewd enough to trade a guy like Chase Claypool and to get a second-round pick for him, right?
And you got Joey Porter Jr.
Yeah, and trade a 6th-round pick to get a guy like Justin Fields. So, it's only 2 years on the job so far, but I agree with you. I think Omar has done a really good job to this point.
Yeah, I love him. That's why we call him the con artist. And speaking of building this team and things of that nature, it's time to talk about this a little bit, because I think he deserves massive credit for the draft that he had in the previous year, but he also deserves credit for what he did this year. Like, if we could say he checked off all boxes except for the cornerback room, so I say instead of a 10 out of 10, he got a 9 out of 10, which is still an A, would be an A. What were your overall thoughts on that? Like the 2024 NFL draft? What grade would you give them?
I thought it was really good. I mentioned the 3 offensive linemen, but let's go to your 3rd round compensatory pick. And this came via the Kenny Pickett trade. You got Peyton Wilson, who I think is going to be a contributor on defense as a rookie. Here's a guy who's got all kinds of athletic ability. He's got size. Now, he does have an injury history, which is why he dropped to the 3rd round, but I think he's got a chance to be a contributor. I also think Troy Fautanu, the 1st-round pick, Zach Frazier, the 2nd-round pick, they'll be starters in short order. And, to me, it's another draft where you're going to have 3, 4, 5 guys who are making contributions to this football team as rookies and in the coming years as well. So Andy and Omar did a good job. I like what I've seen so far in camp, and we'll see if these guys can keep it going here Friday night when they play a different team, the Houston Texans.
Yeah, I'm actually looking forward to that because Texans is going to be another juggernaut team. I think they got the AFC South down pat. So the real question is who's going to win the AFC North? You can argue the Steelers, you can argue the Ravens, and I thought I would never say this, but you can actually argue the Browns if Watson will play up to his expectations. But the good news is the Steelers got a defense, I think, that can take on all 3 other quarterbacks in the AFC North Division. And I think they did, even though I had my faith in Kenny, I think they did upgrade on the quarterback position with the inquiries of, you get what I'm saying, of Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. I think that it's because they're more versatile. They have stronger arm. And not only that, but they are put in a better offensive system that is not a joke to other defenses, one that people won't laugh at. And that's the thing. And I'm actually looking at this right now. I'm looking at this year, and like I actually was about to write an article saying why shouldn't fans be upset about this year's drafts. I said it. The Steelers are going back to their roots of run the ball, stop the run, old school smash mouth football. It's Pittsburgh Steelers football. That's what they're known for. This is who they are. This is what they do. I said that. Run the ball, stop the run playing style. They needed a right guard. They needed a right tackle who has some versatility to play other positions on the line if needed. They got Troy Fantu from Washington. They needed a center, releasing Mason Cole, which opened up some cap space. They also got, Zach Frazier from West Virginia. They needed O-line for both depth and development reasons. They got Mason McCormick from South Dakota. Then the run game benefits the Steelers a lot because it takes pressure off the quarterback. It tires and wears down opposing defenses. It allows your offense to open up their pass game, attack the middle down, get Firemove and Darnell Washington involved more. It allows Najee to start, getting more involved in the receiving game, vice versa with Jalen Warren. And then not only that, but we could see a little pass action with Calvin Austin, who is a great receiver, but just need to be put in a better predicament to win games. Then we got, obviously they are 8-8 in the AFC Championship games, 6-2 in the Super Bowl games. But here's the fun thing about them having a run game, having a two-back punch. You're going to love this number. You're really going to love this. The Steelers overall are 8-8 in AFC Championship games. We talk about they need to get back to Super Bowl football. Cool. But we complain that, they have Najee, they have Jalen, they got all these other guys. Here's the deal. When the Steelers are overall, they're 6-2 in the Super Bowl. They have a record of 5-0 when they have a two-back running game. 1974 to 1980, it was Franco Harris and Rocky Blair. 2005, 2006, it was Jerome Bettis and Willie Parker. They are 1-2 in the Super Bowl when they only have one running back. So I think building this offensive line and having two running backs, possibly three with Cordell Patterson, I think I like the Steelers' chances now at the playoffs than I did heading into both last year and this year combined.
Yeah. Listen, and you also have to stop playing playoff games on the road. I know you're playing a difficult division, but whenever you're the 7 seed or a 5 or a 6 seed, it's hard. It's hard to go play on the road against a quarterback like Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes, which is what they've had to do, 3 out of the last 4 years. So if you can just find a way to maybe win the division or somehow get a home playoff game, you're going to have a better chance, to win in the postseason, which is something they haven't done since the 2016 season. It's the longest playoff victory drought since the 1970 AFL-NFL merger for the Steelers. So it's what they're going through now. It's almost unheard of. That's why Art Rooney put down the mandate. You got to start winning. So, we'll see what happens this year. But like I said, I do like what Omar has done. I like Tomlin's hire of Arthur Smith. I like the quarterback acquisitions. There's a lot of reasons to be optimistic. Now let's see how it goes on the field. Yeah,
it's a lot. Offensive line rankings went 27th in 2022, 25th in 2023. So you could definitely expect an upgrade and much more improvement from there. But we going back to the Roman Wilson getting drafted in the 4th round, if I'm not mistaken, from University of Michigan. There are some fun names that were drafted in late rounds by the Steelers. Antonio Brown, 6th round. Deontay Johnson, 5th. Martavis Bryant, 4th. And John Stallworth in the 4th round in 1974. So maybe, just maybe, late rounds is the Steelers, lucky field, because for some reason, if there's one team that know how to get receivers out of nowhere, it's this football team that I'm glad to be covering right now.
Yeah, it's that the middle rounds is kind of the sweet spot for the Steelers. Roman Wilson, I think, was the number 84 overall pick, so he was, I think, late 3rd round this year. Other 3rd round picks, Emmanuel Sanders. I know he only played 4 years with the Steelers, but he went on to have a really good career. He was a find in the 3rd round. Mike Wallace, also a 3rd round pick.
I didn't even know that.
Hines Ward, a 3rd round pick. So you're right. They got a lot of good history drafting those types of guys. So we'll see if Roman Wilson is another one of those guys. Unfortunately, he hurt his ankle early last week in practice. Probably not going to play this week, but hopefully he's back out there soon, and we'll see what he can do.
Yeah, I definitely, can agree there with that. I definitely want to see what he can do. Hopefully he gets some snaps in the preseason, because we need to see a little bit of what we're going to get in 2024 this year as we starting back off on the road, our usual MO. We're in Atlanta week 1, but speaking of which, we go back to the running backs, because this is something I think we should touch on a little, is Najee Harris being declined for his 5th-year option. Did you hear any reason to why? Because you got people like me wondering how a running back who go from 3.8, 4.1, 3.9, which is his overall career average, yards per carry. And then you got Jaylen Warren, who has 5.1, which you can argue they had a better O-line. They would have they will arguably be the best running back duo in football. So do you have any idea to why they will risk losing one half of this and declining Najee Harris' 5th-year option? What's going on there in the Steel City with that?
So what the Steelers have said, Omar Khan has said this, and Mike Tomlin as well, they want to see how he fits in Arthur Smith's new system. So that's number one. But there's always something else to it, right? I mean, he was due, I think, $6.7 million on the 5th-year option, and it's just an unfortunate business reality of the NFL. You can get guys like Jaylen Warren in undrafted free agency, and you can control them for 4 years, and when you're done with them, you can find a new guy. So that's kind of where we are with Najee Harris. Jaylen Warren, I think, is the back of the future. Najee Harris is probably playing his last year here. And I think the Steelers will move on, and they'll probably get another guy like Jaylen Warren next year. And they'll just do the same thing over and over again. Many other teams in the NFL do it this way. I hate to say it, just the way the NFL is now, running backs are kind of a dime a dozen. You could find them anywhere, and teams have kind of discovered that business approach is one that works. So it's terrible for Najee. I think he deserves a better deal, but that's the reality he's staring down right now.
Yeah, because to me, you can argue he's one of the most, if not the most reliable offensive player on the team. That's just what we can argue. He's been here through it all. He still get his yardage. I just don't think, and that's another player. I'd said it before, I say it again. This is not somebody who got the fair shot yet, because of the crap you forced him to have to go into. And we said it when you drafted him the 20th overall in 2021, we said, build the freaking O-line, please. You had an aging Ben who needed an offensive line, regardless whether it's prime Ben or not. Then you had Najee. You got receivers that can get open. It's like, can we get a better offensive line? They doing it now, but I just hope they can sign Najee Harris, because I just gave you a fun fact. We want Super Bowls. We want titles. The Steelers have the best record when they have a two-back punch or more, and with a top-tier defense, which what we got right now. So I think it's best if we keep that, because we've seen a little bit how life after Le'Veon Bell played out and the James Conner story. We don't want to go back to that. Not now. Definitely not now, when we're starting to get back to our normal selves. The Steelers that we all know and love, and others just find reasons to hate. That's the Steelers that we love. That's the Steelers we want to pay for. So it's like I think they have to find a way. If there's a way. But I understand, people don't want to pay backs, because we know the history. We know they don't really last long. We get it. But when you are a Steelers team, are you talking about winning for the future or winning now? Winning or both. But if we're talking both, we got to find a way to keep a team that is going to put us in predicament to win now, while still, of course, always being prepared for what is going to occur in the future.
Yeah. And it's a great point. And I'll leave you with this, because I have to actually finish a story. But you are absolutely right. When The Steelers give a win now mandate the way Art Rooney did. I think he did it for a reason, too. If you look at this defense, T.J. Watt over 30, Cam Hayward 34, Larry Ogunjobi over 30, Minka, he's
27.
He's still in his prime, but he's getting older. So now is the time to win because you have the defense still that you think can be great. And it's not always going to be that way. You're not always going to have T.J. Watt, Cam Hayward, Alex Highsmith. Those guys, they've built a defense. Now it's time for the offense to finally get something done. And like you said at the top, Shay, you don't have to be great. Just manage the game. Don't make any dumb mistakes. Run the football, shorten the game, and I think the Steelers can have a successful season.
Yep, agree. And speaking of which, before I let you go, 2024, what are the expectations for this football team?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think if you go 10-7, Shay, you're safely in the playoffs. But to get a home playoff game and to put yourself in the best position, maybe you have to get 11 wins. Maybe you have to knock the Bengals or the Ravens off their perch at the top of the AFC North to finally get that done. So it's going to be hard. It's one of the most difficult, if not the most difficult schedule in the NFL this season. But if you can just find a way to get to 10 or 11 wins, and then most importantly, hit your stride late in the season. Go into the playoffs hot like you were in 2005 when you were they were 11-5 and they had a 4-game winning streak, and then they just went into the playoffs and they rolled the playoffs. So just hit it right this year, get in, and then hopefully play great once you get there. I think that's the recipe for success.
Yep, definitely agree. But that's all the time we have. Thank you, Mr. Ray, for joining the show. This is your host, SHAEMAC Sports, signing off. This has been Blitzers. Thank you for tuning in to the very first episode of the SHAEMAC Show. This is your host, Shay, signing out. Click the follow and subscribe button now for more episodes and to get updates on the show. To view more content from the show, give us a follow on your favorite platforms such as Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and much more, all at the SHAEMAC Show. And you can give me, your host, a follow on those same platforms at SHAEMAC Sports.